Miss Eliza Venn had spent 6 years perfecting the art of being exactly where she was supposed to be, and feeling nothing about it whatsoever. She was rather good at it by now. The Harfield Music Hall was the 4th engagement of the week, the 14th of the season, and the 217th social obligation she had attended since the night she had made the only choice available to her, and watched Julian Ashmore walk out of a room, and subsequently out of London entirely. Not that she had counted. She had absolutely counted. The program had already begun. Somewhere near the pianoforte, a soprano was doing her considerable best with Bellini. The candles in the far chandelier, she counted 11, then counted again, gave the room a warmth it didn't quite earn. Eliza stood near the east entrance, right glove on, left hand bare. She had not lost the other glove. She knew precisely where it was. She simply did not wear it, had not worn it, would not wear it until she could identify a specific and logical reason why she should. This was not a decision she had made consciously. It had simply become true over time, the way certain things did, the way certain absences settled into the body so gradually that one day you looked down and realized they had always been there. Dorothea appeared at her elbow. "You look," Dot said, in the cheerful tone she reserved for observations that were not entirely cheerful, like someone who has arrived at a party thrown in their honor and immediately begun counting the exits. "4," Eliza said. "The exits, in case you were wondering." Dot's smile held something careful in it. "He's here," she said. "Came in 10 minutes ago. I thought you should hear it from me before you heard it from the wallpaper." Eliza did not turn her head. Across the room someone laughed, a low, unhurried sound she had not heard in 6 years and recognized immediately in the precise location of her sternum before she had time to do anything useful about it. She looked down at her bare left hand. 23 minutes, she thought. I can manage 23 minutes. She was already out of time. The soprano finished. The room exhaled. In the redistribution that followed, the only empty seat left in the third row was the one directly beside Eliza Venn. She knew this before she saw it, the way you know, sometimes, that a door is about to open. He stopped beside the chair. She did not look up. "Miss Venn." His voice was exactly the same. She had spent considerable effort convincing herself she had misremembered it. She had not. He did not sit immediately. She was aware, without looking, that he was looking at her hand, her bare left hand, resting in her lap, doing nothing, being obvious. "You still lose your left glove," he said. Quiet enough that only 2 people heard it. To her right, Dorothea made a very small sound. In her peripheral vision, Lady Cecily Mortham's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Ashmore sat down, opened his program, said nothing further. Eliza looked at the pianoforte. The second piece had not yet begun. She had 11 seconds in which to stand up and leave, and she spent all 11 of them deciding not to. 22 minutes, she revised. She had not accounted for this. The interval arrived like a reprieve she hadn't earned. Eliza moved to the east alcove, half-curtained, reliably unoccupied, and stood with a glass of champagne she had no intention of drinking. "You haven't touched that," said Ashmore from just behind her left shoulder. She had not heard him approach. "I'm holding it for the symmetry. Have you missed London?" "Some things." "Which things?" She turned then, because not turning had become an answer. He was closer than she'd calculated, close enough that she was looking at his cravat before his face, and she had half a second to arrange her expression. "The parks," she said. "The bookshops on Charing Cross. Those have nothing to do with the season." "No," she agreed. The room's noise pressed at the curtain without quite breaching it. Eliza was aware she had been holding the same glass for considerably longer than was reasonable. "Why haven't you married?" he asked. She had 4 possible answers. She had rehearsed none of them for this. "Why haven't you?" she said instead. Something moved through his expression, too quick to name, too deliberate to be accidental. "I'm remedying that," he said. "This season. I know. Miss Harfield is very accomplished. She is." They both looked at the curtain. "Eliza, I believe," she said carefully, "the second half is about to begin." She set down her champagne and walked back into the room. She did not want to know how warm it had gotten. By Friday, Lady Cecily Mortham had held 3 morning calls. Dot appeared at Eliza's door that afternoon with the expression of someone delivering a package they hadn't chosen to send. "She's telling it sympathetically," Dot said. "She isn't being unkind. She's being sad about it. For you." "What is she saying?" "That it's difficult for a woman of your situation to watch a man she once." Dot paused, the way Cecily paused, discouraged, make so successful a match. She says she admires your composure. Said it twice. Once as an observation, Eliza said. Twice as a warning. There's a third thing. Dot's voice changed. She mentioned the Harfield alcove, said anyone watching would likely misread it, that she was sure your intentions were entirely appropriate. A beat. She said this to Mrs. Pendleton. Mrs. Pendleton, whose daughter was on her third season. Mrs. Pendleton, who breakfasted with Lady Harfield's mother every Wednesday. Eliza looked at the window. The street-side roses had begun to lose their edges, just the outermost petals, the way things did when they'd passed their best moment without anyone noticing in time. How much damage? She said quietly. Enough, said Dot, that people will be watching Thursday's ball. On the mantelpiece, the small pewter box holding Eliza's single glove sat where it always sat. She looked at it for a moment. Then she went back to her correspondence. Thursday's ball was at Grosvenor Square, and Eliza spent the evening in the practiced geometry of being present without being visible. Ashmore found her in the library. She had gone there deliberately, not to hide, she told herself, but to recover the equilibrium she had mislaid somewhere around the second quadrille. She was holding the spine of a collected correspondence when she heard the door. The supper room is through the second door on the left, she said. I know where the supper room is, said Ashmore. He had left the door open, correctly, appropriately, and held a small blue book extracted from the nearest shelf. He crossed to the far wall at the correct distance. Montague's letters? He said, nodding at hers. I wasn't reading it. You hold things when you're thinking. You always did. The fire had burned low. She couldn't quite read his face, and she was not yet ready to decide whether this was fortunate. He reached to the second shelf, unhurried, and held out a slim volume, not pressing it into her hands, simply extending it. She took it. Inside the cover, 2 or 3 words in handwriting she didn't recognize, too dim to read. Page 84, he said. If you get to it. Something shifted in how he was standing, very slightly, the way a sentence shifts when the last word changes everything before it. He recovered almost immediately. Almost was not completely, and she had been watching people in rooms for 6 years. He moved toward the door. I didn't sit beside you at the musical to unsettle you, he said, without turning back. I sat beside you because it was the only seat left. He left. The door remained open, as it had to be. Eliza stood for another 4 minutes, holding the book with both hands, without the symmetry she usually required. She read page 84 at 2:30, by the candle on her nightstand. A single paragraph. A letter from a man to a woman he hadn't seen in 7 years, every sentence doing the work of 10, every subordinate clause carrying something it couldn't name. The precise experience of being in a room with someone and having no language for what you were carrying. She closed the book, opened it again. The front page inscription said, left page. Page 83 was blank except for one line, near the bottom. I kept it. She sat with that for a long time. By 10 the next morning, Mrs. Harfield had arrived for a morning call. 20 minutes. Tea, comments on the season, a well-made match, the general happiness attending such things. She mentioned her daughter twice. She mentioned Lord Ashmore once by name, looking directly at Eliza while she did. She left without saying anything that could be repeated. Eliza sat in the morning room afterward, the tea cooling beside her. The visit was not a threat, it was a communication. We see you. Adjust accordingly. I kept it. She thought about the glove, the left one. The one she had assumed was simply lost to the general entropy of a night that had cost her a great deal. He had kept it. She did not know what to do with this. She had been methodical, for 6 years, about not constructing meaning from silence. She picked up her gloves from the table, right hand. She looked at the left. She put them both down, walked to the window. Behind her, the tea finished cooling. She doesn't know yet what keeping something means. Neither do you. Stay with her. The Pembridge Library, Saturday. Neither of them had planned it. Eliza had come to return the book. She had told herself this several times on the way up the stairs. Ashmore was already there, standing at the window, not reading anything. She set the book on the table between them. Neither looked at it. That night, he said, 6 years ago, what were you thinking? I was doing the right thing. Do you know that? The question had no pressure in it, which made it worse than pressure. She opened her mouth, nothing came. Something crossed his face, unguarded, involuntary, gone before she could name it. He picked up the book, set it back down. Forgive me, he said, pulling a door shut behind the words. That wasn't fair. He moved to the window. The candle between them burned lower than it should have. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Outside, a carriage passed. The sound arrived and left. Eliza looked at her hands. Lady Mortham's moment came at the Ashwick dinner, between the third and fourth courses. "Miss Venn," she said warmly, "3 seasons without a serious offer. It does take a particular strength. We all admire it enormously." The table heard. The table always heard. "I manage," Eliza said. "Of course you do." Nothing in Cecily's smile could be named, though I do wonder whether things might have been different had you made different choices earlier. A lighter pause. "But we all have our reasons." Mrs. Pendleton set down her fork. Lady Harfield's mother lifted her wine. Eliza felt the heat reach her ears before her face. She counted the centerpiece flowers, 7 white, 4 yellow, 2 already dropping petals, and she did not look down because that was the only thing she could control. Then she looked at Cecily directly. One unguarded moment. Something behind Cecily's expression. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Something closer to fear, quickly covered. Eliza saw it. Cecily knew she had. "You're very kind," Eliza said clearly. "To think of me at all." She picked up her fork. The table resumed. The box arrived Sunday morning. Small, plain, blue ribbon carelessly tied, inside, a single glove. Left hand, blue silk, slightly faded, 6 years old. Eliza sat at her writing desk with the box open in front of her for a long time. She did not put the glove on. She did not put it away. Dot arrived at noon. "He went to see your mother 2 weeks ago," Dot said. "I didn't tell you because I wasn't certain what it meant. I'm still not." She sat down. "I think he needed to understand what happened that night before committing to someone else. A man clearing his conscience, Eliza. That's all this is. A man clearing his conscience. Reasonable. The interpretation of a sensible woman with incomplete information. It landed precisely where Eliza had spent 6 years being sensible. Ashmore came that afternoon. "I wanted to be certain you received it," he said. "I did. I'm not asking for anything." He stopped, started again. "Come and walk with me. Once. Hyde Park, before anyone who matters is awake. Say what you need to say. I'll say what I need to say, and then we'll both know." "No," she said. He went still. "Thank you for the glove. I understand what it means, but I think you are trying to close something that should simply remain closed, and I cannot help you do that." Ashmore looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, once, with the precision of a man absorbing something he had partially expected. He left. Dot appeared in the doorway. "That was the right thing," she said softly. Eliza looked at the glove on the desk. "Yes," she said. 3 days later, the announcement appeared in the morning papers. Lord Ashmore and Miss Harfield. A spring wedding. Eliza read it at breakfast, alone, while the tea was still hot. Read it again, folded the paper along its crease. Then she picked up the glove and held it in both hands and understood, with the clarity of a thing arriving too late, that she had been wrong. Not about the choice 6 years ago, about this one. She did not go to the Harfield ball. Dot came and sat with her instead, and did not ask questions, which was the most useful thing she had ever done. They sat until the candles burned low. Dot talked about inconsequential things. Eliza listened. The evening passed like water finding level. After Dot left, Eliza sat alone. She picked up the glove, put on the right one first. Then, slowly, the left, both hands. For the first time in 6 years, she held them up in the candlelight and looked at them, not with satisfaction, not with grief, but with the quiet attention of something finally completed, even at considerable cost. The candle was nearly gone. She did not move to replace it. By Monday, Mayfair knew 3 things. That Lord Ashmore's engagement had been announced. That Miss Venn had not watched the Harfield ball. A headache, reportedly, though several people had opinions about the timing. And that Lady Mortham had been seen leaving the Ashwick dinner early, which was noted because Cecily Mortham never left anything early. The third thing was discussed the least and remembered the longest. Eliza received 4 morning callers on Tuesday. None of them mentioned Ashmore directly. All of them mentioned the announcement. She poured tea and agreed that it was a very suitable match and watched their faces for what they were actually trying to determine, and she gave them nothing useful, and eventually they left. On Wednesday, she saw Cecily at the Forsyth Gallery, briefly, across a room of indifferent landscapes. Cecily looked at her once. There was nothing in it now. No strategy, no calculation. Just a woman who had wanted something, had secured it, and had already moved on. Eliza found she had no feeling about this whatsoever. She stayed for the landscapes. 2 of them were, unexpectedly, quite good. He found her in Hyde Park on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after the announcement, Before the hour when anyone who mattered was awake, she had not come for him. She had come because she walked here every Thursday, and had done so for 2 years, and she was not willing to surrender Thursday mornings to the general wreckage of the season. She told herself this very clearly as she turned and saw him on the path. He stopped 6 feet away. Neither of them spoke for a moment. "I ended it," he said. "Miss Harfield and I, we ended it, mutually, and with considerably less drama than the situation perhaps warranted." A pause. She had also been making a sensible choice. "I think we both understood that." Eliza looked at her gloved hands, both of them. He noticed. She watched him notice. "I asked you a question at the Pembridge Library," he said. "You didn't answer. I know. I'll ask it differently." He took one step forward. Just one. "Are you still certain?" The answer she had prepared, the one she had carried for 6 years, worn smooth with use, was yes. Clearly yes. Structurally, historically, logically, yes. "No," she said. "I don't think I am." Something in his face shifted, settled, arrived somewhere it had apparently been trying to reach for a long time. He held out his hand. She looked at it. Then she put her left hand in his, the gloved one, the one she had not offered anyone in 6 years, and they stood there for a moment in the early morning quiet, not moving, not speaking, while the park went about its ordinary business around them, entirely indifferent to the fact that something had finally, after considerable delay, been resolved. "I kept it," he said quietly. "I know," she said. "I read the page." 1 year later, on a Thursday morning, Eliza Ashmore walked in Hyde Park. The season had turned. The trees along the south path were coming in, and the early light was doing something particular to the leaves that she suspected she would not be able to describe to anyone's satisfaction, and would therefore simply continue looking at. Julian was 3 steps behind her, reading something, a letter, from the look of it, held in both hands. Always both hands. As though the thing deserved the care. She had noticed this about him on the night of the Harfield music hall, and had spent 6 years trying to forget it, and had failed, and had eventually concluded that some things were simply not meant to be forgotten. She stopped at the bench where she always stopped. He folded the letter and sat beside her, and they were quiet for a while in the comfortable way of people who have run out of things to prove to each other and found the silence on balance preferable. The park was ordinary. The morning was ordinary. She had been invisible for 3 seasons, 1,012 days, give or take. She was not invisible now. 6 years of doing the right thing, and the one moment it mattered, the wrong words came out. If you have ever been so practiced at letting go that you almost let go of the only thing worth keeping, this one was for you.